So good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. This is a really wonderful opportunity to share some insights from current parents and alum of Branksome Hall. My name is Ashley McInnes. I am the Director of Admissions, and I'm in my ninth year, actually, here at Branksome. And every time I have this opportunity to listen and speak with members of our community in order to share our story with potential members of our community, I always learn something new, and it never ceases to amaze me how many different stories and experiences we have here at Branksome. So it's my pleasure today to host this roundtable discussion with two current parents of Branksome and a wonderful alum who's giving up some time today as well to share. We have with us today Mr. Ali Salahuddin, who has 3 daughters at Branksome. In fact, 1 just graduated and 2 are entering grade 11 in September. And all 3 of his children have started at Branksome in junior kindergarten. So lots of experience from Ali to share today that we look forward to. And Miss Antoinette Barreto, whose daughter Catherine also joined us in kindergarten and is starting in grade 5 in September. Joining us as well is Miss Lisa Richards, who is an alum of the school from 2002. So over the next little while, you will hear a series of posed questions that our panel is prepared to answer and share today. We'll start with our current parents, and then once we've completed those questions, we'll have Lisa answer a series of questions as well. So between Antoinette and Ali, the first question that I'd like to ask is, why did you choose the school originally? And in which ways is the school what you expected and maybe not what you expected? And Antoinette, perhaps I'll have you start, and then when you're done, Ali, you can just answer.
Okay, great. I think the reason we chose the school was we were between, first of all, the decision was between a public school and a private school. We did tours of the better public schools in our area and some private schools. Branksome stood out for us on our tours as offering a superior education. And its overall feel on the campus was very warm and welcoming. And it seems like they were very interested in Catherine as an individual, her interests, and we like that individualized focus on her. So when we were weeding out schools or doing our assessment, Branksome just stood ahead above everybody else. As far as expectations, the expectation I said about knowing my child and on an individual basis has been far exceeded at Branksome. Administration, principals, vice principals, and all the teachers know her by name. Know her interests, and it's not just my child. When children come through in the morning, you can see the good morning and then your child's name on site. And then for Catherine, it's good morning, Catherine. And it's usually on a Monday where you'll get the question, so how was the hockey tournament on the weekend? How'd you do? Or how was your swim competition? Did you get any medals, or how did it turn out? So they really know your child, not just academically, but all facets of your child, which very much impresses me and is what we wanted for our daughter. Something I never expected would be how Branksome is very, what's the word I'm looking for? They're very current. Current would be the word I'm looking for. They don't step away from diving into very current issues. And in today's world, some of them are very difficult. We have a pandemic going on. We've had some very politically driven issues over the last year. And Branksome steps into it in a very informative, educational way with children of all ages. And they meet it at an age and stage for each child, which I think is great, because the kids are part of a global environment and understand it at the level they're able to understand it. So did I expect that? No, but it is a nice surprise. Ali, those are my viewpoints. I'll pass it over to you.
Fantastic, thank you. I think in terms of the reason that we originally chose Branksome, we were trying to decide between Branksome and two other private schools. We do believe in single gender education, and we wanted to put our daughters in a girls' school and ideally in a private school. So we were looking at Branksome, and we were looking at two other schools as well that were also girls' independent schools. And the reason we chose Branksome initially was actually quite mundane. It was simply because it was closer to where we lived, because we had just moved to Toronto. We had been here for less than 6 months when we had to make that decision. We didn't know enough about the different schools. Now, having been a Branksome parent for 14 years, and I should add, I just completed 9 years on the Branksome board as well. So I think I know a fair amount about the school. The difference between, let's say, Branksome and those other two schools couldn't be clearer. So in terms of what was, as expected, I think, that focus on girls, the focus on educating girls, making them confident, making them resilient, making them think that everything is possible for them and they're, no less than anyone else, and they can pursue all the same fields, for example, as boys do, including, STEM and health sciences, etc., is fantastic. So that part was, as expected. I think the part that I've learned over the years is, number one, how academically rigorous Branksome is. I mean, it's really head and shoulders above other schools in the Toronto area, and really maybe in the rest of the country. I think part of that has to do with the IB and how much of a rigorous standard that enforces. But it's also the way that Branksome delivers the IB, because there are other IB schools, in the country and in the GTA, but Branksome does a great job of delivering that program. So academic rigor, first and foremost. I think in sort of partnership with that, the school is very supportive. As Antoinette said, like, the school understands every child individually, the needs of each child, and is prepared to support them in their sort of unique way. So I think that is maybe the secret sauce of Branksome, is just how nurturing and how supportive it is. And then lastly, just the fact that, it creates these globally minded, citizens, with all the opportunities that kids have, especially in the upper school, for global engagement, exchange programs, trips abroad, and just creating that awareness of, think globally but act locally. I think that global awareness is really, really important in today's day and age. So I think that's how the school has sort of pleasantly surprised us as a family.
Great, thank you both. And certainly location is often a reason why families are interested in Branksome, but it's really great to hear that there were so many other aspects of our school and our experience that have made it the right choice for you. The next question you may sort of have answered in your response already, but if there's anything you'd like to add, it is, what, to the best of your knowledge, and obviously recognizing that you haven't attended or been part of the other school communities, but to the best of your knowledge, what do you think differentiates Branksome the most from other schools?
Yeah, I think it is something that I had mentioned earlier in terms of just, I think if you're comparing it to the other independent schools, it's probably the academic rigor more than anything else. And I think, the school has recognized, I think it recognized this even before the pandemic, but it's really brought it to the fore now. It's just supporting the kids and helping them both with their physical health and their mental health. And the latter part has been obviously a very strong focus over the last year or two. But I think the school does a great job of supporting the kids with their mental health. And I think that is something that is a distinguishing factor. So I think that's, in addition to what I said previously about global engagement, academic rigor, and a supportive and supportive environment, I think the health piece, especially the mental health piece, is something that's really important that I'd like to add.
I would add to that. I think Branksome girls, Catherine has a lot of friends from a hockey pool, her swim pool, neighborhood kids, and we're active parents who know all the kids in these different facets of Catherine's life. I can say when I look at Catherine, she and her peers from Branksome exude a love of learning that I think Branksome fosters. And it's not just, I love going to school every day. It's a love of hearing something, understanding it, but that critical thinking part. It seems very unique in Branksome girls that they don't just accept a statement that 2 + 2, and I'm breaking it down, obviously, but 2 + 2 is 4. They want to know why and how, and it's across the board, across all kinds of disciplines. I see the strategic, critical thinking Catherine shows when she hears something new or learns something new, and it's across the board with all her peers. We have friends in various grades, and I can say I think that is unique to Branksome. Branksome fosters a love of education, but a love of true learning and critical thinking.
Thank you very much for that. This is an interesting one. If the school were to be represented as a single person, what would its personality be like in 3 words? And Antoinette, maybe if you would like to, if you're ready to begin that one.
3 words is hard. I will say that. But I would say Branksome is passionate, for one. It is passionate about teaching. It is passionate about the latest and current models of teaching, IB to the girls at every age and stage from JK to grade 12. They're passionate in what they believe in, and they live it and walk it every day with the girls. So I would say it's a very passionate school on education, on health and wellness of the girls, as Ali said, not just physical health, but also mental health, wellness, the entire holistic approach of wellness. Branksome is passionate about it, but as I said, they live it each and every day with the girls. I would also say it's a very progressive, globally minded school. They look at the world, they see what's going on, and as Ali said, they implement it locally. Things happen around the world, shortage of food, then all of a sudden our students are saying, let's do a food drive here locally. Forest fires, animals dying, well, let's raise money for wildlife in the Toronto Zoo, for example. That's the critical thinking I had mentioned earlier. Something happens globally and we implement it locally, but it's a very progressive attitude, and very global minded and current. And the last thing I will say, which I alluded to before when I described girls from Branksome, the school is very confident in what they're doing. They have studied how to teach, the best methods of teaching. They implement it in the girls, and they are confident that they are forming and putting out girls at the end of grade 12 who are exactly the kind of socially responsible, intellectual people the world needs. And they're confident they're doing that. So those are my 3 words: passionate, globally minded and progressive, and confident.
Thank you, Antoinette. That sounds like a great person that I would like to meet, a confident, globally minded, passionate person. So thanks for that. Ali, anything you would like to add there, please?
Absolutely, yeah. I would say my 3 words are supportive, ambitious, and forward thinking. I think supportive is something I mentioned earlier. I think this is maybe the secret sauce at Branksome, this really supportive and nurturing environment that they create for girls. And they have to, it's a challenging and rigorous school, but I think they do that really well. I think ambitious because, Branksome is at the top of its game. I think it's not resting on its laurels. It's continually investing in facilities, investing in different, pedagogies, different methodologies to look at girls' education and how to sort of maintain its position at the top of the table as far as independent girls' education is concerned. And lastly, forward thinking. I think, the school is really investing heavily in things like research around how girls learn best and really trying to move the needle and be at the cutting edge of that. I mean, we have the Chandaria Research Center where we are researching about how girls learn at different ages and stages and how to bring that to life in the classroom. I don't think I know of any other school, whether it's private or public, girls or boys or co-ed, that has that sort of research center that's dedicated to, putting into practice the latest knowledge about the best way for girls to learn. So I think forward thinking is one of my key terms to describe the school.
Great, thank you so much. Lots of great feedback and comments here, but if there was something that you could change about the school, what might that be, Ali, if you had that power to do something?
And this is maybe because I've been involved with the board for so long. I know that we do a great job on financial aid, and I know that we have been increasing our financial aid materially lately, and especially during the pandemic, we've come through with a lot more financial aid to help families that were, financially disrupted by the pandemic. But I don't think we're the leader in that. So I think that is an area that I would love to see the school do more. It's always a tricky balance between, making sure the school is run financially sound from its daily operations, which it is. It's a very well run and well managed school. And then to make sure that you're investing in facilities, because, it's facilities that sort of bring the learning and bring the community to life. If you look at our AWC and our upcoming project on the East Campus, those things take a lot of funding and a lot of capital to put together. But I think that if we could do more on financial aid, that would really go a long way in terms of making the school more accessible and making it look even more like the community which it's a part of.
Thank you. Antoinette, anything that you'd like to say there?
I was gonna say something akin to what Ali just said, which is the school does a great job. Listen, we're in a political climate where diversity, equity, and inclusion are at the forefront of any institution, not just educational out there. And in the last year, Branksome has pivoted a lot in creating diversity, equity, inclusion. We have the Chandaria Research. Mira Gambir, who runs that, is at the forefront helping us meet all the right standards and check all the right boxes to make sure we're doing everything right. Financial aid is a big part of that because we can reach out and find or have children who apply to Branksome who may not otherwise be able to afford it, but give them the opportunity. And so I know that the school has created some financial aid in the last year. And so that I would agree with Ali. Maybe there's a little bit more work to be done there, but it is a balance. Financial aid is always that balance of keeping the school strong on one side and being able to offer what we can. But I think they're doing a great job at making that pivot now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We are obviously very grateful for the support we have of our donors and for the program that we have at the moment. And we look forward to continuing to grow our financial assistance opportunities in the years to come. So thank you. Thank you both for that. What do you think families might find the most surprising about Branksome, given your experiences? Ali, we'll have you start with that.
I think most families and prospective families are generally going to be pleasantly surprised when they send their daughter to Branksome. I think what the school does a great job of is creating a partnership between the parents and the school, with the child at the center of that partnership. So it's not one of those schools where you sort of drop your kid off in the morning and pick them up in the afternoon, and when you ask them in the car ride, what did you learn today, they say nothing, and that's that. It's you have regular contact with the school, with the teachers, with the administrators, and so you have a very good sense of how your child is doing. And then your child also wants to tell you, how they're doing in school, what different subjects, what different field trips, what different activities. And I think that's partly a function of the IB program, because it's sort of interdisciplinary, and you get to effectively, learn the same sort of material from many different aspects. You might learn something in science class, and then you may do something that's related to that in art class, and then you may do something that's related to that in music or robotics. So I think that holistic learning approach is really key, and that partnership between the parents and the school with the child at the center is really key. I think that's probably something that people are pleasantly surprised with, the level of engagement, how invested the school is in your child, and how invested the school is in making them thrive and making them be the best student and the best person they can be. So I think that was probably something that was very, very surprising and very positive for us. It's not, it's not a place where you just drop your kids off and then kind of forget about them for the next few hours. It's really a place where the child stays in the center of attention, both during their school day and beyond.
Thank you. I often, when I'm asked, about the Branksome experience, one thing I say, it's almost like a one-stop shop in a sense, because we have so many, and I know you weren't specifically speaking about extracurriculars or before or after care or athletics, but really and truly to add on to that student-centered approach to teaching and learning, are those opportunities for students to be so engaged outside the classroom that when you do drop them off in the morning and pick them up at the very end of your workday, oftentimes they've had such a whole school experience that they have many stories to share on that drive home, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just one more thing, if I can add. I mean, my kids, to speak to your point about one-stop shop, my kids have done music lessons after school at Branksome. They've had extra help with tutoring at Branksome. They've been involved in the mother tongue program at Branksome, all sort of set up and provided by Branksome. So it really has been a one-stop shop for us, which has been really convenient, and it's helpful. My son, who goes to Upper Canada, he goes to summer camp at Branksome. So he knows as much about Branksome as some of the girls who go there, because he spends so much time on campus, and obviously it's close to where we live. But yeah, one-stop shop is a good way to describe it.
Great, thanks. Antoinette.
I would say there's a couple of things that surprised me about Branksome. One thing is it's a very community-based school. Branksome does a good job of integrating the children. When Catherine came in senior kindergarten, she was coming up into a class where JK was already together. And I've seen this in other students who joined us in grade 1 and grade 2 and grade 3. And the classes are bigger by the time as you get older and you're joining. And I think Branksome Hall does a great way of integrating new children, or I shouldn't say children, because we're talking right through to grade 12 and they're not children anymore. I'm looking at it from my daughter's perspective, but students, looking at students and integrating them into the fold, where every girl will find friends and existing students will reach out and introduce themselves and get to know new students coming in each grade across the board. And that goes for parents as well. New parents who come to the school will feel very welcome by any cohort. We have a grade rep system that's in place that we start off the year with socials so new parents can get to know existing parents. There's a great buddy system in place for new students where they get buddied with an existing student in the cohort they're going into. So contact is made over the summer. So your student, when she starts in September, at least knows one, if not more than one, other student in the class. And that goes for parents as well. You've met one existing parent family who can introduce you into the fold come September. Branksome prides itself on being a community school. And I can say, you know, my husband and I walk on campus when we could be on campus before the pandemic and to pick up Catherine. And sometimes we're still there half an hour later because we've chatted with so many parents along the way. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. It really does feel like extended family. Branksome also, because of that extended family, listen, life throws us struggles and obstacles, as we all know. And not only the school, but the parent community rallies when things like that happen to support families who are going through a difficult time. I've seen nothing like it in other schools. I've heard nothing like it in other schools. It is a very, very community-based school, which makes me so proud that to be part of a community like that. The other thing I will say is private school is a privilege. And I think the administration and the teachers know that, and they instill in our students, this is an opportunity. Use it, work it to be the best person you can, but it is an opportunity that not everybody has and gets. And you should use this opportunity to help other people who may not have the same opportunity as us. So the charity, the take actions, and the initiatives students come up with to help and support locally is amazing. And that comes from what Branksome teaches. And I think that's another fabulous trait that I didn't expect, but I truly appreciate.
Thank you so much. I was sitting here nodding, Antoinette, because when, you know, people who just, they're not interested so much in Branksome, but they're asking me personally about my job or my life, or, you know, and they ask about, you know, I always say I love my job. And some people say, wow, I don't hear that so much anymore. And I always say that it's the community and the opportunities that I've had personally at the school and that I know that our families and students have. So those two words for me are pretty goosebumpy when I think of Branksome, and I'm glad that they are part of the lived experience of our families as well. So the last question that I have for our parents on the panel would be, Ali, what advice might you give to students just entering the school, if you think to your daughters and their experiences?
I would say to students that, you know, there are so many opportunities at Branksome in the classroom and outside the classroom, but it's really up to you to engage with those opportunities. So do that, engage as much as you can. You know, outside of your coursework, there are so many clubs that you can join. You can start your own club if the one that you want to join isn't there already, although most of them are there already. You can go on exchange programs. You can go on service trips abroad. You can do, you know, an exchange when you get to grade 9 with Branksome's sister school in Korea. So there are just so many opportunities to engage. You can, you know, do reading buddies at Rose Avenue Public School. You can help, you know, underprivileged children across the city. There are just so many opportunities, even through the, you know, the Duke of Ed activities. There are so many ways to engage in creative pursuits, in active pursuits, in service. So there's just a ton of stuff that you can get involved in, but it's up to you to get involved. And the more you get involved, the more you get engaged, the richer your experience is going to be. So as much as possible, engage with those opportunities at school.
Thanks, Antoinette.
I'll piggyback on what Ali said to the extent that, I'm going to sound like, a real parent here, but what you put in is what you get out. So as Ali was saying, take every opportunity, make your own opportunities, because Branksome gives you the breadth to make your own opportunities, should there not be an existing one there. And use them and use them. But I will also say coming to a new school can be intimidating, no matter how old you are and what grade you're coming into. What I can say is reach out to your peers, because Branksome students have been taught and have either experienced it themselves or have a friend who've experienced the warmth that the community around you can give you, the support the community around you can give. So don't be afraid to ask questions of your fellow peers, but also your teachers and your administration. As I said before, the school is very passionate about what they do, and everybody is there to help and will help and want to help. So never feel when you're a new student that you're alone, because you are now part of the Branksome family, and we, at every level of the school, we take that as a responsibility to help support you in your transition into Branksome.
Thank you so much, Antoinette and Ali, for your parent perspectives. And Lisa, we'll now shift our focus to you and your time here at the school. And the first question is very similar to what I asked our parents. Why did you choose the school originally? And in which ways was the school what you expected, and maybe what it was not what you expected?
Yeah, so my experience of going and choosing Branksome wasn't even so much a choice. I remember when we were looking at where most kids from the grade school I went to out in the suburbs went to the local Catholic high school. But when I was looking at doing something different, like for my dad, there was no other choice. We did not look at other independent schools. It was Branksome or bust. That was the only application that I filled out. I have an aunt, my father's sister, who did go to the school before. So we had a close connection with it. And it was a no-brainer that we didn't even think of anywhere else to apply to going there. In terms of what I appreciated about the school, and one thing I want to roll off of what Antoinette was saying earlier, private school is a privilege. I went to Catholic school from grades 1 through 8. So my first taste of independent school was in grade 9. And something that I really appreciated about there was how much well-rounded opportunity was available to me. Ali was speaking earlier into the various clubs and activities that you can participate in. And I would say one of the things that I appreciated the most about my time there, and even thinking about who I've grown into as a person 20 years after graduating, is in addition to going to my classes, I also was always on some sort of musical ensemble or independent club. I was in debating, and now I'm like, oh yeah, you speak on stage all the time. Who knew that would play out 20 years later? Always involved in some sort of sporting activity, and didn't again think I'd end up becoming a personal trainer at one point, and I still do fitness every single day of my life. So it's just so interesting to even hear from the parent perspective the things that they appreciate that their daughters are getting at the school, remembering my time there and being like, oh my goodness, 20 years later, aspects of that touch my life every single day and have really hugely shaped the person that I've become. So the well-rounded aspect of the school is definitely something that I can say I see touching my life every single day, 20 years later.
Wonderful. And since clubs has come up a couple of times, I just want to put a little plug in for the fact that we certainly do have a group of students who just want to share their passions with each other. And that creates, I think 2 years ago, before the pandemic hit, for our in-person clubs and ensembles, we had over 70 opportunities for our students in the senior and middle, and then almost probably that in the junior school as well. And then during the pandemic, when we did all of our creative thinking about how to deliver the Branksome experience, we were still able virtually to offer almost 50 different clubs. And so that's a big piece of the student experience at Branksome. And I'm just so pleased to hear that it's come up in so many responses today. So thank you, Lisa, for sharing the evolving of those experiences into your day-to-day activities now. What, to your best, well, as you said, you didn't really look anywhere else, but I'm sure you may have had some experiences with friends or friends after graduation when they reflected on their independent school experience. Is there anything that you think would differentiate Branksome from the other schools?
Yeah, one thing I can speak into, like you said, I literally Branksome tunnel vision. That was the only place we ever considered. And now that I'm considering moving out of Toronto, I'm like, oh, how can we get back? Because if I have a daughter, she has to go to Branksome. I don't want her in a different school. But one thing that I think I can really say for this school is, we hear Antoinette was talking earlier about how much diversity, equity, inclusion is a big part of the conversation today. I can honestly say, having been there 20 years ago, inclusivity was a big part of my experience being at Branksome Hall before it became part of a larger conversation. Again, having come from a Catholic school, then going into the independent school system, my experience of what to expect from a private school was, those extremes that you see in movies, like really snobby, rude, rich kids, lobster for lunch, like I didn't know what I was walking into. And that absolutely wasn't the experience at all. There were people from various walks of life in there. Again, in my experience, nobody was made to feel any different, no matter where you came from. It was a very, very welcoming experience, regardless of income, gender, or like background, all of those other things. So it was a very, very inclusive experience. And I think that's a standard that Branksome has held, not only when the conversation has become big, but has done consistently throughout the years.
Great, thank you for that. And now the same question as I asked of our parents, I think this is probably the hardest one, about if the school were to be represented as a single person, what would its personality be like, using 3 different words?
I was definitely hoping to come in here with 3 completely different words, but I am going to piggyback off of one that Ali shared. Ambitious is definitely a word that I would use to describe Branksome Hall. Even as I look at my classmates, and fun story that we're having this conversation today, when tonight I'm going out with 2 of my girlfriends from Branksome. So the fact that we still have these incredibly close relationships. I'd say 4 or 5 of my girlfriends I talk to like every single week are from Branksome. So it's really nice to have that experience so many years later. But as I look at where we've evolved to in our careers, even as independent individuals, like ambitious is definitely a word that I see throughout all of us. Whether lawyers, managing a team of educators, VPs at various companies, like ambitious is definitely something I see within the group of people who I graduated with. Another word I would use is well-rounded. Like I said earlier, one of the things I appreciated the most about my time at Branksome was being able to participate in so many different activities that contributed to who I am outside of my education. So again, just even looking at how I operate in the world today, charity was a big part of Branksome Hall and volunteerism. And just reflecting over the last 3 days, I participated in an event that raised over $20,000 for charity. I don't need to do that as a part of my job, but that's a skill that's been, or a value that's been instilled in me through Branksome. That's still something I do today. Like I mentioned, music's still something that I'm interested in. Fitness is like all the things that I learned at the school, I still do to this day. So it's really nice to develop into a very multi-dimensional individual and have that implanted in you and instilled from you from a younger age. The other word I would use to describe the school is aware. I think both parents were talking earlier about being aware as global citizens and what's happening, and not just, I feel like something I see so much, especially in my line of work in the online space, is a lot of online slacktivism and posting about causes, but not actually putting your money where your mouth is and putting action into it. And that's something that I see from a school perspective, but also from the various individuals who've graduated from the school. It's a part of our conversations. It's a part of the way that we operate in the world. Just even being mindful of the people around us and thinking, last week we were doing an event with my mother and thinking there's going to be a lot of walking. Like, would you like us to grab a wheelchair for you just so that you're not like uncomfortable? Just having that awareness of other people and how you can make their experiences better is definitely something that came from the school as well.
Thank you. And when you do reflect on your time at the school and what you've taken away from it, is there anything that you would change about the school for the better?
Yeah, I have a fun answer for this one because it has been changed. So I'm, talking again from 20 years removed perspective, having been at Branksome Hall. And even what I would change was an insane privilege to have back then. I think about some of the facilities that we had. So I don't know if any of the parents here saw the old pool back in the day. Some of the old facilities that we had, the friends that I went to grade school with did not have a pool at their school. That wasn't even a conversation. But to see how the school has upgraded, I think, there used to be the Performing Arts Center. I think it has a different name now. There's the AWC, if I'm getting that name correctly, because it used to be something different when I was there. To see how the school continues to evolve and offer the students first class access to various types of equipment and facilities so that they can truly have like the best education possible is something that I love seeing the evolution of. I try and make a point of making it back to campus once a year just to see how things are changing. So it's great to say the thing that I would have changed has already been taken care of. And I've gotten to hear about some of the plans that the school has for the coming years in terms of what they're developing. So for me, it would have been facilities, but again, they're in top-notch facility or top-notch condition now.
Thank you for that. Yes. And as Ali said, a very forward-thinking school. And so always looking ahead and always getting a sense of where can we make a difference for the experience of our families, and facilities has been one of those areas with that focus on wellness, health and wellness as well. So what do you think families might find most surprising about the school? When you think back, you and your family for the 4 years you were there, what was one of the
I'm not sure if this is surprising, but it's certainly something that my mom really appreciated. And it's funny, I can see her calling right now. I think about the pride she would have in this conversation happening at this moment. It's truly about how much Branksome cares. I was so surprised when I left the school and went to university, and just number one, I was just a number 9 now, 250192 something or the other. Me as a person didn't matter anymore. Whereas, Antoinette was talking about when her daughter gets to school, they ask about her hockey tournament on the weekend. People really cared. One thing that I definitely appreciated, and I don't think it's surprising how much Branksome cares in this aspect, but slipping wasn't an option. This is something that my mom appreciated so much. So my parents are math and science minded, and I am absolutely not. But when my grades in math weren't going that well, it didn't take until springtime for somebody to notice. By October, it was okay, you need to be in sittings with your teacher. There were different opportunities for me to get that extra support that I needed. And then, when we all realized that math just wasn't my shining strength, there was the recommendation, okay, what else would be a better fit for Lisa, which ended up being gym, much to my parents' dismay. And then again, that also played out in my career. I spent 4 years successfully running PR for one of the biggest growing boot camps in the country. So who knew that something that happened to me in grade 11 would have had such an impact on my career years later? So the fact that Branksome cares as much as it does, I think, again, I don't think it's surprising, but it could be surprising for some people.
Thank you. And what advice would you give to students just entering Branksome Hall?
For sure. And again, I want to piggyback off of something Antoinette had shared earlier in terms of the buddy system. I was when you were talking about that, I was that still exists. That's fantastic. I definitely remember going into the school in grade 9 and having that fear and intimidation of what is this experience going to be like. I remember my buddies, Julia and Ashley, and they welcomed me warmly and introduced me to other people. And I think definitely lean on those individuals who are taking you in, and also be open to making friends with everybody. One thing that, again, I'm sure it's different from grade to grade, school to school, but I truly felt that from grade 9 to OAC, because I was there when we had grade 13 or GY at the time, I could be friends with anyone. I could sit with anybody at the in the lunchroom. There was no cliquiness. Everyone was super welcoming, and I don't just again, based on what you see on high school movies and experiences that you hear from other people, that's not the case. There are the jocks and this group and that group. That did not exist at Branksome. I could hang out with anybody there. And I think that was one thing that I really appreciated. So I would want to encourage people to talk to any and everybody, because there's probably a certain kind of person who goes to that school and a certain kind of person who's attracted to it. And you're going to have that commonality and openness in person. So be adventurous to talk to anybody and make friends with everyone.
Thank you so much for that, Lisa. We do often talk about the fact that you'll find your person at Branksome, and you'll find that by doing what has been encouraged by everybody on this call today, is getting involved and putting yourself out there and joining different clubs, opportunities, taking those classes that are of most interest to you. And you will be known at Branksome. And all of that is what's coming through so brightly today. And I'm so pleased to have this conversation. I was wondering if Ali and Antoinette wouldn't mind. There was just one other question that I wanted to ask. And it's just in light of the last year and a half with the pandemic and your experience at Branksome, with how we have, as I said earlier, creatively thought about how to deliver our experience. We're sitting here today, hopefully heading into a year of full in-person learning. Who knows what the future will hold? But if there was any comment or feedback that you wanted to share, if families were interested in knowing how Branksome handled, if you will, our education in the last 17 months or so. Ali, would you like to comment on that?
Sure. Yeah, I think the school did a great job of rolling out, the Branksome experience in an online manner. I think we were pretty quick to roll out a really great academic program and to do it, quickly and without the hiccups that many other, not just schools, but other organizations had in terms of transferring to a virtual environment. I think Branksome did that quickly and smoothly and successfully. So I think that was, full marks for that. I think Branksome also did a great job of, as much as possible, of rolling out other activities like clubs and other activities for students to keep them engaged. Because, let's face it, the pandemic was tough for everybody in different ways. And it was particularly tough for students because the best part of school is, of course, going to school and seeing your friends. And you didn't have that for a while. So I think Branksome did a great job of trying to keep the students engaged and giving them the mental health support during that very difficult time. And I know that continues. So that was also something that the school did that was really, really great. And I think when we had the opportunity to go back to school, whether it was, with cohorting or every other day, the school did a great job of the physical, safety and security of the students in terms of distancing and, antibacterial coatings everywhere and plexiglass shields where appropriate and things like that. So the school did a great job of the physical safety of its students and its staff. So I think, really full marks to the school for doing a great job and pivoting very, very quickly. And I think if I compare that to other organizations, other schools, the school was, very responsive, very ready, and really did a great job. So it, from sort of a 10,000-foot view, it was as if, nothing had changed or nothing had been disrupted. Of course, on a day-to-day basis, you notice the changes in your routine and whatnot. But I think the girls still got a good education and they still felt connected to the school and to their friends and their community. And I think hopefully we can go back to normal in September, but I think the school didn't miss a beat. And as a result, our students haven't missed a beat during this last year and a half.
Thank you. Certainly, health and safety of students and employees was number one priority. But that did mean that there were some things that were lost throughout the year. So thanks for reflecting on that. Antoinette, anything you wanted to add to that?
Yes, I will say that, as we've all said in the past, the school is global minded, but the school community, that's parents, board members, our deputy chair, our chair, everybody in the school has touch points globally. And I think what Ali said is true. We pivoted and responded and got online with relative ease for the girls. Uninterrupted education is the way I look back at that. But I will say we saw what was happening. We had the benefit of everything happening in the East and coming West, and we saw it coming. And as Branksome saw it coming, I remember being in discussions, as I said on the parent council, I remember being in discussions about, will this come here? Could it come here? And Branksome was already in anticipatory mode. So we weren't exactly in responsive mode. We were ahead of the game and we're anticipating, should it come here, this is how we're going to pivot. So when everybody else was oh my gosh, it's here, we have to respond. We already kind of had guidelines in place or protocols in place of what we were going to do, which transitions into uninterrupted education for the girls. I thought it was great. This question's personal for me because my daughter never stepped foot on campus last year. She did remote from September right through to June because of other family issues. We couldn't have her out in the community. And so because of that, as a parent, I was doing what was right for my family, but I always worried about the social impacts to my daughter of being remote the whole time. Notwithstanding that she was remote, never stepped foot on campus for an entire year, she felt very much part of her class. Her teacher knew her just as well as she knew any child in that class in person. The connectivity Catherine had with her friends and her teacher impressed me beyond belief. I expected maybe she was going to take a bit of a back seat being remote and not there for the year, and that was not the case at all. Again, no child gets left behind at Branksome, remote or in class. That individual attention is there. They had a finger on every student. And again, that is hard when you've got a hybrid model of some in class, some at home. But again, they did a phenomenal job of making sure they knew every single student. And I found that incredibly impressive. And of course, as Ali said, the safety protocols, as they were coming out, and there were learnings from those first few weeks of what could be tweaked a bit here and there. The school was always in conversation with parents and the parent association and the grade reps, hearing what may not have been working at certain grade levels, what could be tweaked for, let's say, a junior kindergartner versus grade sixes are running smooth with that. JK is having a bit of a hard time. How can we tweak this? But there was always that conversation with parents working to make sure that each cohort was thriving to the best of that cohort's ability. So I thought they did a phenomenal job with that as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Antoinette. And I'm pleased to hear that Catherine's year was still a very positive one and an engaging one for her. So that sort of concludes the formal questions for our round table today. Before we say goodbye, if there was any final parting comment or anything you had hoped you would have the chance to share today, would just open the floor for anything that you might want to just say as we wrap up.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
I mean, I think if you're a prospective family or a prospective parent or a prospective student that's thinking about, an independent school, especially an independent girls' school, I mean, it's after having been involved with the school for 14 years, I would say it's sort of a no-brainer to go to Branksome. If you look at our academic results compared to the IB average globally, they're far higher. If you look at our OSSD grades, they're higher than average, materially higher. If you look at the fact that almost all of our girls do go to university, they all get accepted to university. That's a pretty amazing statistic. Many of them go to the best universities in the world. Many of them get, scholarships to go to the best universities in Canada, in the US, and the UK. So if you judge a school by what kind of graduates it produces and what those graduates go on to do, I think the proof is in the pudding. I mean, Branksome is definitely doing what it's meant to be doing as a school and sending, say, the top graduates to the best universities all over the world.
Thank you so much.
I would agree. You can't go wrong with Branksome. Its education is a high level superior education, but it's not just the education you get there. You come out as a well-rounded, socially responsible, independent, confident woman. And it's yes, you're intellectual. Yes, you're getting into all the great schools, but I think Branksome goes deeper than that in creating a person who the world wants to see. It wants to see in its future leaders. And I think Branksome is setting up future leaders of the world that the world needs and wants to see. Well-rounded leaders.
That sounds like a great lead-in into our current leader here. Lisa, if there's anything as an alum that you'd like to just wrap up with.
Yeah, one thing I'd love to share is I'm not a parent yet, but I listen to the pride with which Antoinette and Ali talk about their kids. And I think I may have mentioned my mom a time or two on this conversation. We're so incredibly close. And just thinking into the pride she feels in who I've become and the pride who Branksome parents see their children evolve into. Over the last weekend, we're preparing for my wedding next month, and she came with us to the site visit in different venues, and she came and saw like the conversations we were having with vendors, how we conduct ourselves, the things that I do in my work that I don't even think about. They're just what I do. And the moment that we had over the weekend while she sat down with my fiance and I was just saying, like, Lisa, I'm so proud of how I raised you, to see how you operate in this world, to see the things that you're doing that you don't even think twice about. That, like, to hear that from my mother was one of the most meaningful things. But to even think about how she feels as a parent saying that, like, I just want every parent to feel that way for their kid. I hope to feel that way about my kids one day. I'm tearing up thinking about it, but just the pride in who your kids develop into is a really, really powerful part of the Branksome experience.
Well, thank you, everyone, for that. And, Branksome of today, we talk a lot about the International Baccalaureate program, which is the curriculum of study. And Lisa was not a graduate of our IB program, but everything about Branksome that we are talking about today has been part of the Branksome experience and part of our values and part of our, our community all the way through, which we're hearing and seeing from Lisa, and we are hearing and seeing in our current students and our current families. So a change in our academic program only enhanced, I think, what our families and students are experiencing. But at the core of it all, what I'm taking away from this conversation today is a community of caring and supportive members who just want the best for their children, who want the best for our students, to create the leaders of tomorrow that we know are going to sustain and bring us all through all of the challenges that might be ahead in our world. And I just want to thank everyone for your contributions to this conversation today, and to any guests who will be viewing and listening to all of this. I invite you to check out the Branksome Hall website, to reach out to the admissions team, to reach out to any members of your community that may have experience with Branksome. And we would welcome you virtually for a while until we're able to have guests back on campus. But our website will always be updated with opportunities to connect. So once again, thank you to Lisa, Ali, and Antoinette. And I hope that it is a great rest of the day. And thanks again.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thanks, Ashley.
Bye.